outsource your compliance and sleep well at night, because these companies, they have no liability. But even if you were to hire a guy like me and I make a mistake, I'm sorry, but the fine and the out-of-service penalty are still yours.
Welcome to This Week in Trucking. I'm Amy, and today we're joined by your DOT guy, Brian Riker, a transportation safety and compliance expert with years of experience on his hands. He helps small carriers understand what inspectors look for and how to avoid costly mistakes. If you're an owner-operator or running a small fleet, keep on watching. But before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Your support helps us keep bringing weekly videos your way. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brian.
You're welcome, Amy. My pleasure to be here.
Awesome. If it's cool with you, let's get right into it. My first question to get into this conversation would be, for the one truck owner-operator, what's the first thing they should make sure is in place for a compliance standpoint before they even hit the road?
If you're a one truck owner-operator, and you're not leased onto a carrier, you have to have your authority in place before you ever use that truck for any business purpose. And that is a multi-step process. But the most important thing is insurance, operating authority, and a drug testing program, because the drug testing program, even for the owner-operator, is one of the, I call them the deadly sins that they will shut you down immediately for. So if you skip everything else, insurance and drug testing program if you're a CDL owner-operator.
And what would you say are the most common compliance mistakes you see small carriers make that could make a comeback and hurt them during an inspection or an audit?
Well, since all new authorities are going to have a compliance review sometime in the first 18 months, we've gone to a virtual review, which makes it a little bit easier, but you're going to have that review. So one of the biggest mistakes a small company makes is not having an employment application and verifying their own background. The US DOT doesn't care that you're a one truck company. You have the same compliance hurdles as a company with 5,000 or 10,000 trucks and drivers, including applying for a job where you're the one that's hiring you. I know it sounds crazy, but you have to complete that application and you have to check your own background. Otherwise, you're not qualified to drive the truck, even though you own it.
That's a great piece of information I didn't know of. If a driver is involved in an accident, what documentation or reporting does the FMCSA require, and what timeline should carriers follow?
Great question, Amy, because an accident is a stressful thing for all of us. And when you're on your own, you don't have a safety department to back you up. So if it meets the definition of an accident by US DOT standards, which would mean you had somebody killed, you had somebody injured that was treated away from the scene, a vehicle was towed away, and the citation was issued to you, the truck driver. Not a fatality always, but in the other situations, you have to have a citation to go along with the injury or the tow. You have to investigate that. So you create what's called an accident register. You collect the police report, you take pictures, you figure out a root cause of what happened. Did you do something wrong? Did the other person? And then if you're CDL owner-operator, you must have the post-accident drug and alcohol test. So if you have a fatality or you get a citation and any of those other are true, towed away or injury treated away from the scene, you have 8 hours to submit to a DOT alcohol test and 32 hours to submit to a drug test. So if any time in that 32-hour window you get notified that the police are going to issue you a ticket and somebody got hurt or vehicle was towed away, you need to take a drug test. So it's a best practice just to collect one anyhow. And that also helps defend you later should a lawsuit happen, because you can prove that you were not impaired at the time of the crash.
And then what would you say are some key elements a good safety policy would have, even in the smallest fleets, that they should have in writing?
You're required to have a policy prohibiting use of cell phone, even as a one truck owner operator. That can just be a couple lines on a piece of paper. You're required to have a policy in writing that tells you you have to obey all state and local laws, including the speed limit. That has to be in writing. And you have to have your drug and alcohol policy in writing. Those are the mandatory ones. Now, as an owner-operator, you're going to get your drug and alcohol policy from whoever is your third-party administrator, the consortium you use. The rest of those, you just create a simple policy that says, drivers at XYZ Trucking have to obey state and local laws and have to be hands-free on their phone, have to use their seatbelt. Outside of that, written policies, if you're going to create any extras, just make sure they comply with law and that they comply with industry best standards. So you can't create a policy that says, I expect my drivers to cheat their logbook or violate any laws, or I expect my drivers to drive when it's snow and ice out when they have the legal right to say no. That's my best advice to you as a small carrier on policies.
And then we know that dash cams are super important. Like we said, after an accident, you take pictures. But from a dash cam standpoint, for regulatory and risk perspective, how do they help you protect your fleet?
I love dash cams, and I'm an early adopter of them, both in my personal vehicles. I have inward and outward facing dash cams with GPS tracking, just like you would in a big truck, in all of my personal vehicles. But even as a driver, I was an early adopter of them because I've seen them protect you. My only caution with dash cams is don't make the footage disappear even if it shows you did something wrong, because A, that's a violation of law. You're tampering with evidence. But B, even if you are the at-fault party, a dash cam will settle that claim faster for less money and reduces the chance of litigation because it is clear exactly what happened and there can't be any made-up stories. So a dash cam is almost a must today, and I recommend both inward and outward facing. And I know that there's some privacy concern issues from drivers' point of view, but I think that outweighs the value of the footage outweighs privacy concerns, provided that you are a driver that follows the law and drives safe and isn't trying to eat dinner and play on the computer and everything else while you're driving down the road.
Yeah, I didn't know that even if you're at fault, that footage could be beneficial for you.
Absolutely. Your claims providers love it because they can clearly see what happened and it can take what could be stretched out in litigation to $1 million claim and say, no, they didn't hit them that hard. This is $20,000 worth of damage to the car and a couple dollars for personal injury. So they are absolutely critical, even when you are the one that's at fault for the crash.
Wow. And then now going more into a DOT audit, what are things that carriers should be doing regularly to be ready for those audits?
The hardest part for a carrier, especially a small carrier, is keeping up with the paperwork. By the time you start your trucking company, you're probably an experienced truck driver that knows how to drive, knows how to get a load there on time. But the paperwork end, nobody has an appreciation for. So the best thing you can do for your audit is stay current. I set reminders on my calendar. I use Outlook, but you can use Google or any other calendar app you want. And I set reminders for when my UCR is due, when my biennial update is due. I set reminders for myself monthly that I need to write my miles down and figure that month out for my fuel tax and my portion registration, etc. That way I keep the documents current.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to do is have a box full of paper at the end of the year we've got to figure out how to put together. And keep it organized because you never know when DOT is going to come knocking. When they send you that new entrant review notice, you have 21 days to respond. And if you're like most owner operators, you're out on the road. It's going to take you a couple days to get home and even start looking through the paperwork. So the best thing you can do is take your downtime and keep your paperwork organized to support your audit.
Definitely. Yeah, I think earlier in the channel, that was one of the things we mostly talked about is staying compliant means also keeping all of your paperwork in check at all times.
Absolutely.
And then if you had to give just one piece of advice for a carrier trying to stay compliant to avoid fines or keep their safety ratings clean, what would it be?
Don't fall victim to all of the predatory, scammy type companies that offer assistance. There, you will be bombarded with people offering to help you with things that you can do for yourself for free. Take the time to read the regulations. You can read them online for free at the FMCSA website, and they have a compliance helper at FMCSA. It's a website where they explain it in plain English for you. Then when you're not sure, reach out to a competent professional to get some guidance, but pick a professional with the heart of a teacher that is going to teach you how to do this so you don't become reliant on them. You cannot outsource your compliance and sleep well at night, because these companies, they have no liability. You're still the one, even if you hire your DOT guy, Brian Riker, to help you with this. And I'm not offering, because I have more customers than I can take right now. But even if you were to hire a guy like me and I make a mistake, I'm sorry, but the fine and the out of service penalty are still yours. So make sure whatever you do, you ask questions and understand what this person that's helping you, if you choose to get someone help you, is doing. That's my best advice for you, is read up on the rule book. You can't play the game if you don't know what the rules are.
Now we are in the digital era. And for, as we said, the small carriers that don't have a safety department, what tech actually makes compliance easier and what is just hyped up and doesn't really help? What would you say is actually a piece of technology we should be using for compliance?
One of my favorite tools for compliance, especially for tracking my mileage for fuel tax and my apportioned registration, which you have to remember, they're tax documents, so they take those audits very seriously when they find something wrong. One of my favorite pieces of tech for that is the telematics that are built into your ELD. Most of us have to run an electronic logging device anyhow. You might as well let it capture all that data. And if you get a good one, and I'm not going to name any specific brands, but if you get a good one, you can upload your fuel receipts and everything into it, and it'll spit out an IFTA report for you. It will spit out hours of service reports and point out errors so that you can fix them. That right there is wonderful. There are other programs available, such as the Owner-Operator Independent Driver Association. Their Compliance Connection app is a wonderful app for a one-truck owner-operator that reminds you of everything you need and creates digital files so that you have access to it while you're on the road. And so there are apps like that that are wonderful. But most importantly, take advantage of the tracking that's built into your ELD for all those other reports.
Now, moving more into insurance and insurance premiums, as we know, these are extremely high. What would you say are small things carriers can improve on their safety score and how they can lower their insurance risk profile? What would be the quickest ways or the easiest ways they can improve their safety scores?
The easiest way you can improve your safety score, absent getting experience, which takes time, is to stay on top of your vehicle maintenance. Every commercial insurance underwriter out there looks at your CSA score. And what's the biggest component of that? Your roadside inspections and maintenance issues. So don't just say, oh, it's only a headlight or it's only a mud flap and I'll get it after the next trip. Address those little things immediately and you'll be less likely to have a failed roadside inspection. Therefore, you will have a safer score. They use something called the CAB card. It's the Central Analysis Bureau that breaks all this down and assigns risk to your behavior on the road. And you'd be surprised how they rate things like being caught with a headlight out means you don't care about the details, so you're more likely an unsafe driver. Whether it's true or not, that's the way insurance companies look at it. So stay on top of your vehicle maintenance and stay a mile or two below the speed limit. Don't give the officers any reason to interact with you out there, and you'll keep your record clean. Because remember, everything you do in your car counts against you in your truck as well. And when you own the business, even if you are hiring drivers, they still are going to look at how you behave because that sets your tone for compliance and your tolerance for risk. So it's all about reducing your tolerance for risk to keep your insurance premiums as under control as possible in today's world.
And then by 2025 standards, which is 2025 is so close to being to a close, what absolutely must a driver do or have in their qualification file to avoid violations or civil liability?
You have to have a complete driver qualification file. I work with a lot of attorneys as an expert witness. So I'm the person that comes in and tears the company apart to figure out what you did wrong, or tears your company apart to figure out what you did right to help defend you, depending upon which side hires me. So The number one issue in trucking litigation today are unqualified drivers. Now, I don't mean you didn't have a license and you didn't know how to drive the truck. I mean, on paper, you didn't prove you were qualified. So make sure that you understand all of the DOT qualification regulations and you complete that file. It is paperwork, but it is critical paperwork that you have to have. And the number one issue, again, that owner-operators miss is their own background investigation. They don't collect an application. They don't pull their own motor vehicle record because they know it's good, stuff like that. They don't contact their own previous employer. That will get you in trouble as a small fleet every single time.
The last couple of interviews we've had on the channel, is people who now have leased on owner-operators. What compliance pitfalls do carriers face when they rely on contractors instead of employees, and how can they protect themselves?
Excellent question, Amy. And that's a two-part question. So I'm going to answer it from both points of view. If you are the motor carrier that is leasing on, so you're a one-truck guy and you want to grow, but you don't want to buy a second truck, you want to get your brother John on the road and how he's going to own his own truck, however you want to do it. You have to remember that in the eyes of the US DOT and in the eyes of the court, that truck and that driver might as well be owned by you. So if Brian Riker here has a trucking company and I want to hire Amy to have her own truck, I have to treat Amy and her truck as if you're my employee and I own the truck, meaning I become responsible for everything you do whenever my US DOT number is displayed on the side of your truck. So the risk is greater than just hiring a driver because you don't really control the maintenance on that truck. That driver fixes it themselves or makes it happen themselves, meaning you have to have a process in place to make sure that that truck is up to your standards and that driver is behaving up to your standards, even when they're off duty in that truck, because ultimately you're responsible for it. And now from the perspective of you are the truck owner leasing onto a motor carrier, you have to remember that legally they have that responsibility. So they are going to have that control. You have to relinquish some control of your equipment to them when you are operating it under their number. But you also have to make sure that the insurance policy that you say you're paying for, you get documents to prove you are actually covered. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it does happen where motor carriers cheat and they don't name every truck, and then you're involved in a crash and it's not covered and your truck is not protected, and your own insurance you have when you have your non-trucking liability on it is not going to pay out if the other policy was not in force at the time. So perhaps your biggest pitfall as the owner-operator leasing on to another company is to make sure that they stay current on their insurance, their registration, and their fuel tax so that your truck doesn't get held up in that mess.
That's great advice. And thank you for responding from both perspectives. That's really helpful. And then my last question for you would be, if Brian Riker was starting his trucking operation today, just one truck, what are the first 3 steps you would be taking?
Well, before I even made that decision, I would be pricing insurance to make sure that my record and my history is insurable. Then I would also be looking at the market to see what commodity I want to haul and where, because the markets change. And my experience has mostly been with car haulers. I've owned car haulers and tow trucks most of my life. So for me, I would be looking at where the best market is to haul cars today. And then only after I've done the market analysis and made sure I can get insured, would I buy a truck and start my journey in the compliance. One thing I would avoid, you hear a lot of people say, I want to age my authority, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't work. The brokers know you haven't been hauling anything, because when there's no proof your truck's been on the road for the 6 months you paid for insurance, they're still going to treat you like you're a brand new day one person. So get a truck, get it insured, and get some work for it, but only after you've studied the market to make sure you can make a profit and you can afford the insurance. That's what I tell someone when they come to me asking to help them get their operating authority. Have you priced insurance yet? No, I haven't. Come back to me after you have, and probably 60, 70% of them, they never come back because they're priced out of the insurance market. I mean, you're looking at a $20,000 to $30,000 down payment today for insurance on one truck. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Wow. Well, amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Brian. Your insights have been incredible. It's been wonderful talking to you and getting all your tips and advice. Is there anything else you'd like to share or any piece of advice you'd like to give before we wrap up?
Just remember, trucking is business. You have to treat it like a business once you own your own truck. It's not a job anymore, meaning there's going to be some uncomfortable things you have to do. There's going to be some sacrifices you have to make. And when you don't have somebody there telling you what's right from wrong, make sure you err on the side of doing right at all times, because it will come back and bite you if you don't. So that's all. Just remember, it's a business. Treat it like one. And best of luck. Stay safe out there.
Awesome. For everyone watching, remember to subscribe to our newsletter. We send you weekly tips and market analysis and the best stories from the road straight to your inbox. You can find the sign-up link in the description below, and it's completely free. And of course, leave us your thoughts and comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to This Week in Trucking to learn more about the industry and never miss a conversation like this one. Once again, Brian, thank you so much for joining me, and drive safe, everyone.